and really just kind of talk about what's gone on the last couple of days. I know there's a couple of different topics that we want to talk about right off the bat. I know that we want to talk about Bernie stepping down from the presidential primary. Want to talk about Bernie still being on the ballot in Oregon as well as 26 other states. Want to talk about some really heinous news that we heard that came out of here in the Portland metropolitan area as well as elsewhere, which kind of leads on to talking about our social safety net, employment, and the difference between at will employment and independent contractors. So there's a lot of different things. But first of all, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's another day in quarantine.
Yeah. It's I'm still grappling with this whole thing about Bernie out of the presidential primary.
I am too. You know, I got really heartbroken during Super Tuesday. I I didn't want to feel defeated, but watching how the entire media and Democratic establishment, you know, did what they did. I don't even know what to describe what happened because
Coordination.
yeah, we had a bunch of good potential presidential candidates, and they all dropped out and endorsed the one guy who just won a primary because they're so bent on trying to stop Bernie.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of the case in point. I mean, at that point, when all of the candidates dropped out, Pete Buttigieg actually had way more delegates than Biden did. But it was almost as if there was a playbook or something that was written that said, by X date, if none of you guys are clear winners, we need you all to drop and rally behind one that we selected, so that we ensure that we don't have this Democratic Socialist take over the Democratic Party. That's the way it felt to me.
I agree. I didn't want to feel defeated, but I felt defeat on the horizon, and so I've kind of like I was heartbroken when I got the news that Bernie dropped out, but I've kind of been bracing for that impact since Super Tuesday, so I'm kind of numb about the situation.
I'm just going to put it out there. I think that this was a Herculean effort by the establishment in conjunction with mainstream media. They continued to beat the same drum of inevitability when in fact that simply wasn't the case. We saw what happened after Bernie dropped out. We saw the stocks rise for a variety of health insurance companies because they said, hey, we're going to go back to business as usual, right? We're going to go back to business as usual.
Disgusting.
Long story short, and this is something that we talked about yesterday as well, is that this isn't about idolizing Bernie. This is not about idolizing one man, and one man does not make a movement. We have hundreds of really strong, good citizen representatives who have stood up, who are making the challenge against the status quo, who are making very valiant efforts to change the status quo. And I think that we are going to see some successes as we go through this primary calendar. I know that a couple of our brand new Congress mates have gone on to the general election.
We've already seen some successes.
Yes, Adrian Bell and Mike Siegel in Texas, and we're looking for more to join, and we're looking to do the same in May. But like I said, it's not about Bernie. It's about the people. It's about the 99% who don't have a government that's working for them. We see that it's evident in the way that, this current crisis is being handled. It is the repetition of 2008 with the financial crisis, when our government decided to bail out the very people who destroyed our economy, the very people who played fast and loose with the laws and the rules and the regulations. We bailed out the Bear Stearns. We bailed out GM and Ford. We made them fly commercial to DC to do it, but we still bailed them out. But when it came time to bailing out Main Street, when it came time to bailing out the people that were stuck with these mortgages, we were like, you're on your own. And uh, I see the same thing, only magnitudes greater this time around. We've given trillions of dollars to Wall Street. In turn, when we finally get around to, and that came without deliberation, without discussion, that just happened, right?
Just
To
overnight.
protect the assets of the 1%.
How are you going to
But
pay for it?
no, of course they didn't ask how you're going to pay for it. But then when it was time to talk about bailing out the people, well, we got to talk about this, right? We got to talk about this. And they talked and they talked, and all of a sudden they slipped in another $500 billion with no strings attached to corporations. And then they said, maybe if you qualify and means tested and you jump through X, Y, and Z hoops, at some point, maybe in May, maybe you will get $1,200. Too little, too late for the vast majority of us. I mean, I saw the news article today where it said that a third of us have not paid our rent for April. Come middle of May, when those checks come, that's not even going to cover the May rent, the April rent, let alone the May rent, let alone food and all the other things. We've got people who have tried. Another article where a woman tried literally 1,000 times to file for unemployment and was not successful. If they continue to do business as usual, if they continue to give away, these windfalls to corporations and not take care of the people, I don't know what's going to happen.
It's we have to do this political revolution, because we have this wonderful way to change our system and to reinstate citizen representatives and a way of governing ourselves.
Yep.
And our framers were revolutionaries, and they had enough foresight to build ways for the people to revolt into the Constitution, so we can do peaceful political revolutions. And that is what we're left with. And to the back to not me us with Bernie, one of the most inspiring things that I've seen after Bernie dropped out was it was a picture of all of the candidates who have been elected to Congress in the 2018 cycle, and the different candidates who are still running in the 2020 cycle this go around.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's about building that movement, and Bernie, he's always understood that this is movement building, and in movements. In movements, not everybody wins, not everybody gets through, and the leaders get targeted. And Bernie, he came out of nowhere in 2015 and inspired a new generation of political activism, and that still lives on today. Even if Bernie likely isn't going to be the presidential nominee, we still have power to bargain within the Democratic Party to prioritize progressive values, because we still have champions like Ro Khanna and AOC and Rashida Tlaib in Congress. If we get them back up in 2020, if we have a more progressive Democratic platform going into 2020, let's say this cycle we were able to abolish super delegates. That would be an amazing step forward, for us saving democracy within the way our party functions.
Well, I'm glad you started talking about that, because that's the other thing. We've got 26, 27 states where Bernie remains on the ballot. Okay. And hold on. We are all working from home these days. So unfortunately, we're going to have some snafus here. But we've got 26, 27 states that still haven't voted in their primaries. And I plan on voting for Bernie in the primary because for one thing, we need to make sure that we get a delegate count there that's going to be able to help shape the rules when it comes to the Democratic National Convention, the Democratic National Party. Additionally, I think that we need to ensure that our voices are heard. Okay, there is a large minority within the Democratic Party that's saying we need Medicare for all. Okay, and actually, it's a majority when you look at the percentages who say they want Medicare for all. They want a Green New Deal.
And
You know,
52% of Republicans support Medicare for all.
yeah. So if if the party, if the establishment wants to make this truly a coalition, they're going to need to listen to us, to the burners, uh, and listen to our demands. Okay. Now, I think that there is going to be room for compromise, but you don't just say take it or leave it, because if you do, we'll leave it, right? And that is not going to be good for the party. It's not going to be good for the country. Um, but for me, I saw on the news earlier today that Biden's team is starting to make some thawing. They're looking at changes. I didn't get to read the details. Did you on healthcare?
I've seen that the story exists. I also I've not read it yet. I've been at work all day.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're fortunate to still have work, right?
This is accurate.
That brings me on to another topic. So I read an article today, and it was about Instacart. And it was about how there are people out there who have been enticing the Instacart shoppers to do their shopping, ensuring that they get their food at the time that they want it to be delivered, with these huge tips, like $55 tips. So these Instacart workers, they're independent contractors, by the way. They go and they take these orders, fill these orders, go deliver these orders, and then hours later find out that their tip, that $50 tip, gets turned into zero. So one article on CNN highlighted what happened here in the Portland metropolitan area to an Instacart independent contractor who was baited with a $55 tip, $50 tip, and then was switched to nothing, $0. So for her efforts, she made $8.95. And now there are a couple of different things I want to unpack when it comes to this. Number one, that was cruel. That was theft from that person who did that to her. Number one. Number two, this woman was risking her own personal safety and the safety of her family to go do the shopping for this Instacart customer. This Instacart customer knew full well what they were doing. They didn't want to go out shopping for themselves. They wanted to protect their own safety. So they sent some frontline workers, some low-level worker to go do that bidding, and then to add on top of that to steal the tip that they were supposed to give, that they were going to give, that they advertised that they were going to give. That's immoral. That's unjust. And there definitely should be something that's done to that person. They need to repay that worker. But here's the other thing. They got into the story of that particular Instacart worker, and her husband is unemployed right now, and he is at high risk for COVID. He's diabetic, and so they are dependent on her work on Instacart to actually get their livelihood during this crisis. And to have somebody do that to them is just atrocious, especially when they're putting themselves at such risk. And I understand that she's been working for Instacart for 3 years. The next issue is the whole thing about this independent contractor system, this gig economy that we have, because while she lost out on $50 tip, Instacart still made their money off of her labor. They didn't have to worry about paying payroll tax for her or anything. She has to fill out all of her own personal taxes for being an independent contractor, and that's simply not fair. We can't let these companies like Uber and Instacart and Lyft and the like get away with classifying these employees as independent contractors to further reduce their liabilities, tax liabilities. So, we live in this super capitalistic system where we have corporations do everything they can to reduce their tax liabilities to the point of misclassifying employees as independent contractors, corporate inversion, shifting their headquarters to another country. Yet when it's time for them to hold their hat out for a bailout, they're the first in line, asking the government to help them out. Airline industry asking for $50 billion. We need to bail out the people. We need to bail out people that are working hard. We've got frontline workers, both the grocery store, people picking up your food, and the doctors and the nurses and the allied health folks that are working in the hospitals to take care of folks. These are the people that need to have the protections, and we need to ensure that we're bailing out all the folks, including our childcare workers that take care of the kids for the folks who are still forced to go out to work and can't work from home. And I know I'm just going on a little bit of a rant here, but I'm just kind of livid about this whole situation, especially since it happened here in the Portland metropolitan area. I thought we were better than that. You're muted.
Sorry. The way I look at it is, you basically made an agreement with that person. You said, if you do this shopping for me, I'm going to give you $55, and then you cheated them out of that agreement. Like that shouldn't be legal. And this abuse of employees, both any employee who relies on tips, whether they work in restaurants or if they work in the gig economy, and also especially for employees in the gig economy, they don't have the protections that other traditional workers have. We have enforceable laws that govern pay here in America. That if your employer cheats you out of pay, you're supposed to be able to get that pay from them. Gig workers don't really have this type of same system, because the way that they rely on getting paid are through loopholes like through tip services. My understanding back in the Great Depression, it was typical that companies did not offer things like sick time and vacation pay and health insurance and such, but to help in that time of crisis, and to help attract employees, they started providing these types of benefits. The gig economy and this abuse of contract workers, basically a way of making somebody your employee without calling them an employee, so you don't have to pay them benefits
or the payroll tax, even, right?
It's a return back to the days pre-World War II, and the way that corporations just tried to suck work out of the people.
And here's the thing, so long as we have fat cat career multimillionaire politicians ruling over us, being in office for 20, 30, 40 years, being in bed with these corporations, we're not going to see a change. Okay. The other day we were on with Michaela Wilkes, who's running in Maryland 7th against Steny Hoyer, who has been in the House for 40 years, the king of pork.
I think she said he was sworn in the same year that Ronald Reagan was sworn into office.
1980.
Yeah, which is unfathomable to me, that he's been in that position that long.
I was 5 years old.
And, I wasn't around yet.
Yeah. But when you have these, look, this system was not built to be careers. These weren't supposed to be careers. These were supposed to be cycled out. It's sort of like you're in, you represent your constituents, you help build out the next leadership. What we have right now is a stale, calcified system where we have folks that have been in for 20, 30, 40 years who are so far removed from regular working people, they have no idea how the rest of us live. And quite frankly, probably don't even care. They feel entitled to be there. They feel entitled to the positions until they die. We've had far too many of them die on us in the last couple of years in office. And then when they die, what happens? Their spouse replaces them, which is the case.
Somebody gets appointed.
Yeah. I mean, there was another candidate that we're talking about from Michigan who's going up against the Dingle dynasty that's been there for 70 years of the same family. I thought we were living in a democracy. I didn't know that we lived in a monarchy. I thought, this was not a place of kings and kingdoms, earls and earldoms. I thought that this was a place where we had citizens representing other citizens. This is by far an example of why we need term limits. We need term limits because of the combination of money and politics and gerrymandering that basically makes these super safe seats, super safe blue seats, super safe red seats, uh, no competition. So then our representatives aren't really accountable to us. They don't listen to what our needs are. They don't hear what we're talking about. They don't care about what's going on, about the things that are happening within our districts across the country and around the world. I mean, here in our district, we've had a houselessness crisis that has been a crisis for over a generation. When I first moved here in 2005, it was it was a critical crisis then. It is super critical today. It is a humanitarian issue. It should have been addressed a long time ago. It has not been addressed. And quite frankly, you know, we've got an incumbent that's co-opted what we've been talking about, which is we need a housing first program. Okay, we need a housing first program that does not set up preconditions for folks to get housed, because housing, as the United Nations has said for over 40 years, is a human right.
Yeah.
And if it is a human right, then we should not have tents on the street. Those people should be housed. You give them the housing, and then we start talking about how to take care of their other needs. Now, if you have a housing first program mated to a single payer Medicare for all system that includes drug dependency treatment, that includes mental health treatment, those two things together combined, the housing first with the Medicare for all, will help to dramatically reduce our houselessness crisis, this homelessness crisis. Now you take that and you add on the next thing, which is a demand for living wages and affordable housing. I think you solve it. You know, we've had a minimum wage on the federal level that has remained flat for 40 years, thanks to money in politics, thanks to all of the lobbyists who have been lobbying against raising the minimum wage. If you simply take and peg it to inflation from the 1970s, the minimum wage should be about $33 an hour today. Here in Portland, you need to make at least $28 an hour in order to live on one 40-hour a week job.
One of my favorite points about that tidbit in the minimum wage is we talk about, you know, the prosperity of the American dream. You know that Albert, you just said that the minimum wage, if it stayed at the same rate that it should be when it was unpegged from inflation in the 70s, it should be $33 an hour, and already our standard of living is $28 an hour, and that $5 gap, that is that American prosperity that we're stalled on. That's your ability to, you know, to save and to purchase things and to exude your influence in the world the way that Americans are taught that we're supposed to be successful in life.
Right. And so, you know, here's the thing. You keep the minimum wage suppressed while productivity has gone through the roof. That difference is the profit, is the concentration of wealth that has been shifted to the very top. You know, in 2015, Bernie Sanders was talking about 9 people owning as much as the bottom half of Americans. Today, he talks about 3 owning as much as the bottom half. What's it going to be next year? 1. This is unsustainable. This will lead to social and political instability if it is not addressed and if it is not taken care of. We've had articles from even billionaires who said, hey, you know what, maybe we should kind of tamp down on this immense wealth gap, because those that small subset of billionaires actually kind of have the foresight to see what could happen if it isn't addressed. There's another subset of billionaires out there who also have foresight, and what they're doing is they're buying shelters, they're buying bunkers, right? Ridiculous. So instead of actually righting the injustices that affect this entire nation, they're still thinking about number 1. They're still thinking about numero uno, and trying to figure out how they're going to ride out the impending storm. I think that, you know, that kind of thinking, that individualist thinking, is a problem. This peak capitalist system that we have is a problem. This overconsumption, overproduction, built-in obsolescence is leading to the destruction of this planet. It is leading to the destruction of the stability of this country.
Absolutely. The reason why Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world and the Walton family is one of the richest families in the world. The reason why these guys have so much wealth is because the U.S. government floated the bill for the employees that they stole the wages from. We're the ones that provided food stamps, that provided employment supplement insurance to the working poor that we allowed these capitalist oligarchs to extract wealth from, to work them with next to no pay and little to no benefits.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we could talk forever. I mean, I'm getting worked up already, but I think we want to keep this one down to a half an hour for today since it's just me and you. But want to go ahead and let folks know that we are going to continue to fight the good fight. If you are not registered as a Democrat, we're asking that you do register as a Democrat. I know for some of you got to hold your nose to do so uh, before April 28th. If you do, you will have an opportunity to vote in the closed primary on May 19th for your next member of Congress. And we know that here in one of the bluest districts in the country, the decision is really made in May, not November. Whoever comes out in May will ultimately go on to win in November. So if you want to have an opportunity or a choice to have a representative that is going to listen to you, have a representative that's going to be responsive to you, I ask for your vote. I ask for you to vote on May 19th. And I hope that if you're not a Democrat, that you register to be one before April 28th. In addition, if you're a Berner, I hope that you join me in voting for Bernie, because it is still important that we send delegates to the national convention if there is a national convention. So again, his name is on the ballot as well. You can find more information about me at albertlee2020.com, and you can feel free to shoot us an email with any questions that you might have. And I hope that you continue to stay safe. Think about those that don't have the same levels of safety and comfort and capacity, and don't be like that Instacart shopper.
Definitely. I just wanted to let everybody know we are working on building out our phone bank, and I'm getting into the text bank going. If you are interested in helping us reach voters in our district, please send me an email, volunteer at albertlee2020.com. You can also go to albertlee2020.com and go to sign up as a volunteer, and it'll send me an email, and I will get in contact with you. But yeah, with everything shut down, our only ways of contacting voters is through social media activism and through calling and texting people. And so we need all of the assistance that we can get to reach people.
All right. Well, thanks, Joshua, for hanging out with me today. And I think that we've got a local town hall tomorrow. We're going to meet up with our endorsed mayoral candidate, Teresa Rayford, and a couple of other luminaries. We're going to talk about some of the issues that people of color here in the Portland metropolitan area face and how our perspective is different. So join us tomorrow. I believe that's at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock.
I think.
Yeah. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you all.
Thank you.